You are the chosen in 1 Peter 2:9. In our Free Grace Perspectives group on Facebook, I noted that 1 Peter 2:9 is used dualistically, that is, in both a soteric and mythologic capacity, while Revelation 17:14 is used exclusively in a mythologic capacity. I have defended that thesis at length in my books, The Outer Darkness and Mythological Models, Part 3. To recap, all believers are called to rule. Some believers will be chosen to rule. Only faithful believers will rule. For the sake of simplicity, chosen was pictured statically. Actually, it is used dynamically. First, note the basic level. All believers are chosen soteriologically. Additionally, all believers are initially and provisionally chosen mythologically. Ultimately, only faithful believers are chosen for mythological realization. The faithful are a subset and secondary level of those originally chosen. There are two levels of those who are chosen. Soteriological selection is static. Mythological selection is dynamic. Jesus said, "Many are called, but few are chosen." Matthew 22:14. Jesus made chosen a subset of called. Via his range of background text implemented in 1 Peter 2:9, Peter uses the word chosen in dual capacities to cover the full range of meaning. On the one hand, Peter says, "You are chosen, royal, and holy." On the other hand, Peter says, "You are to be chosen, royal, and holy." Picturing his potential mythological election as transversing from blue to yellow is a static picture taken midway in a dynamic range that runs from static blue to mytholic green. Green represents the actual realization of the mythological potential by the faithful. Vosendek, in the Grace New Testament commentary on Revelation 17:14, states, "Those who will be with him," that is, with Jesus, as he arrives to do battle and set up his eternal kingdom, are called, chosen, and faithful. This recalls Jesus' words in Matthew 22:14, "For many are called, but few are chosen." Chosen is eklatos. The fact that the soldiers who accompany Christ in Revelation 19:14 are clothed in fine linen, white and clean, may imply that those who have the privilege of riding with Christ into this battle are overcoming believers who finish their lives on earth in victory. And he tells us to see his comments on Revelation 2:7. This is seen in that they are called and chosen. Again, the word for chosen in both Matthew and here Revelation is eklatos, but are also faithful. So these overcoming believers who finish in victory are not only called and chosen, they are also faithful. The faithful are the final subset of the called in Revelation 17:14. The chosen are apparently an intermediate subset of the called in Revelation 17:14. This relationship can be pictured via a Venn diagram. The chosen are the final subset of the called in Matthew 11:14. This relationship can also be pictured via a Venn diagram. Compositely, chosen acts in a dual mythological capacity. Matthew 11:14, chosen is green. In Revelation 17:14, chosen is yellow. It's an intermediate step. God and Mythological Models Part 3 demonstrate that chosen acts in dual soteriological mythological capacities by providing two viable translations. You are a chosen, again the word is eklatos, generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special treasure. It can also be translated as you are to be a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special treasure. Chosen is the initial soteric state of all believers in 1 Peter 2:9. Chosen is the intermediate potential Mistolic state of all believers in 1 Peter 2:9. Chosen is also the ultimate realized state of faithful believers in 1 Peter 2:9. Compositely, chosen acts in a triple capacity. My translation of 1 Peter 2:9 is, you are to be, which I would put in parenthetical expression, noting that may be inserted or it may be removed. It can be taken either way. You are to be a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special treasure. One famous background passage is, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then, you see the if-then structure, noting the condition, you'll be a special treasure to me, and you'll be a royal priesthood in Exodus 19, 5-6. The yellow, denoting Mistological conditional aspect, is crystal clear in the Old Testament background from Exodus 19, 5-6. In other words, it's definitely conditional, and it's conditional pertaining to a kingship, a kingdom, being royal. Yet this is not the only background passage intended by Peter. Soteriologically, all believers are God's special treasure in Ephesians 1:14. Peter includes this dimension in 1 Peter 2:9 by combining the phraseology found in Exodus 19:5, Isaiah 43:1, and Malachi 3:17. 1 Peter 2:9 tells us what we unconditionally are at the soteriological level. It also tells us what we conditionally are to be at the Mistological level. What we are is soteric, and they're denoted in blue, and what we are to be is Mistological and noted in yellow. In my book pictured on the left, Sealed and Secure, I focused primarily on being God's soteriological treasure in Ephesians 1:14. In my book pictured on the right, Dual Sealing and Security, I focused on the soteriological Mistological duality of this treasure. I noted the soteriological Mistological duality of 1 Peter 2:9 in Dual Sealing and Security. It was one of the texts in this soteric Mistolic chart from Dual Sealing and Security. Whereas all believers are a soteriological treasure to the Lord in this group of texts, including 1 Peter 2:9, only faithful believers are a special Mistological treasure to the Lord, as pictured in this other group of texts, including 1 Peter 2:9. Note that 1 Peter 2:9 is used in this dual sense. All believers are betrothed to the Lord, but only Mistologically pure believers will realize the intended matrimonial goal. All God's sons and daughters of Isaiah 43:6 are included in the sweeping promises of the next verse. Everyone who is called by my name, whom I have created for my glory, whom I have formed, even whom I have made. In Isaiah 43:7, being God's special treasure is not conditioned on being his obedient child in this context. Rather, all his redeemed children qualify. Look at verses 1 and 21 of that chapter, for example. Given that Peter certainly includes this passage in the mix of background passages, and that this passage clearly conditions being God's special treasure on simply being his redeemed child, again, look at Isaiah 43:1 and 21, one must conclude that Peter's Old Testament allusions are not limited to the Mistological arena, but encompass the soteriological spectrum as well. Thus, all believers are treasures in God's trophy case, but some are trophies of wood, while others are trophies of gold. As I mentioned in my book, Rewards Are Eternal, and elaborated in my book, The Outer Darkness. The first promise of the kingdom in the Bible is recorded in Exodus 19:5-6. Now then, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be my own possession among all peoples. For all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you will speak to the sons of Israel. The possibility of being such a royal priesthood and holy nation at this mythological level is opened to church age believers as well by Peter in chapter 2, verse 9. However, in order to qualify mythologically for this holy kingdom status, we must obey God. This regal millennial title is already applied to us presumptively, as you can compare in these other passages. This rulership is already ours potentially and positionally, but the only way it will become ours experientially during the future millennium and beyond, that is into eternity, is if we obey presently. As discussed at length in Mythological Models Part 3, Peter says, "But you are to be a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation." He applies this title to believers provisionally, that is, provided they meet the requirements for its future realization. As Chumney correctly notes, the Old Testament stresses the contingent nature of the promise. If you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you will be to me a royal priesthood and a holy nation. The full experience and exercise of our position as ruling priest is contingent on our present performance and must await the future for its full manifestation. The copula to be in 1 Peter 2:9 is suggested by its related New Testament counterparts in Revelation. He has made us to be a kingdom, priest to his God, Revelation 1:6. You have made them to be a kingdom and priest to our God, Revelation 5:9. The unrealized tension is evident even in those translations that fail to use the copula. Just as the Old Testament syntax yields the following conclusion: believers are God's special treasure. Faithful believers will be God's special treasure. While all believers may equally be trophies of God's redeeming grace, faithful believers are additionally trophies of God's sanctifying grace. Mythologically speaking, only faithful believers are golden trophies, royal trophies. God's trophy case has plenty of room for all his trophies, but some trophies are more glorious than others. As also discussed in Mythological Models Part 3, ruling out a soteriological dimension is difficult because Peter immediately proceeds to explain, you once were not a people, but now you are the people of God. You had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. Peter has just affirmed that they have been redeemed in chapter 1:18 and born again, chapter 1:23, and are to approach his exhortation as newborn babies. Surely, in this New Testament context, they are God's people because they are children of God by virtue of soteriological mercy and by means of spiritual birth. They have been born into the royal family and are members of the royal family, therefore, by birth. They would be expected to understand that they are God's special treasure, at least to some extent, simply because of their relationship with him as their Father. Nevertheless, they are warned that the full realization of being God's special treasure is yet future and is contingent upon their performance. 1 Peter 2:9 presents a 3D duality. Pictured here in the chart from Mythological Models Part 3, you have an already not yet duality, a potential versus actual duality, and also a soteriological versus mythological duality, all contained within this verse. For further discussion in my book, see mythology.org or unconditionalsecurity.org. At the bottom, as noted, you can click on printed books and see these books and others dealing with this material.